With the completion of the Tales from the Far Territory expansion, the Long Dark has gone through quite an evolutionary change across most of the game's mechanics and systems. One of those changes included the Frontier Comforts cooking system with enhanced cooking and unique recipes. Later on, we would get the meat curing box, which would allow for a better way to preserve meat, as well as a bunch of new unique foods and recipes acquired from the trader. The landscape of food has expanded tremendously, and that leaves me with this question. How extensive will the food aspect of Blackfrost be? Will we see the bare bones cooking system we had before, an enhanced system with recipes and cooking ingredients, or will we see more unique variety and ways to preserve food for long-term survival? This video is a wish list of things I want to see in Blackfrost that makes the most sense in a survival situation. These are 5 foods I want to see in Blackfrost The Long Dark 2. Before I continue, I want to mention that for this video, I'm mostly taking into consideration foods or types of foods that aren't in the first game currently. I would love to see everything we have in the Long Dark, from cooking recipes to ingredients to the unique foods that only the trader can find. I hope we see it all at some point. Since it will be released in an early access state, it is likely that we will see more things added over time for all systems and mechanics. I wouldn't expect everything all at once. It's also possible that a lot of what we see in the first game won't even return. Because we are on the mainland and Blackfrost focuses on a population zone such as Harmont, the possibilities of pre-First Flare foods are much more extensive. Again, for this video, I want to talk about foods that aren't in the Long Dark. Although this first one does exist, so I will explain why I'm including it in this video. So pickles were a fun surprise to see in the trader's wares that seemed odd at first, but I eventually realized how much it made sense. Cucumbers are probably the most popular pickled food in North America, with hot peppers right behind it. Not only can pickles provide a delicious snack, but the process for making them is something that fits perfectly in a survival game. Pickling as a mechanic for preserving vegetables for later consumption would be a really nice extension of the current food preservation in the Long Dark. If we see cucumbers, peppers, potatoes, or carrots, they can be pickled in order to keep them from spoiling. It would also be nice to see pickles within the world made by previous survivors because it seems like a natural thing they would do to prepare for winter. One thing I really hope to see in Blackfrost is evidence that it's been a year since the Quiet Apocalypse started. Seeing the remnants of former survivor activity, including the foods they made and left behind, would be a perfect way to express the passage of time. Going along with the food preservation idea, I would also love to see fruit preserves. Tomatoes can be boiled and jarred to allow for future use. Peaches can be cooked down into a jam that can be used for later consumption. For the same reason we would make pickled vegetables, we should be able to make fruit preserves. Same as before, I would also like to see the preserves of other survivors left behind. These could be used to make vegetable broth in the case of jarred tomatoes, or fruit pies with other fruits. Assuming the world isn't in a perpetual winter, which I don't believe is the case, there was likely a summer period between games that allowed survivors to grow crops. It would make sense to see the remnants of the previous harvest and any pickled, jarred, or preserved foods that were made with said harvest. With any apocalyptic scenario, dental health could become a serious problem for everyone. That makes me question my next suggestion because it's practically hard enough to break diamonds. Okay, that was a bit of an exaggeration, but hardtack is pretty hard and pretty dangerous if not consumed properly. Made from flour, water, and salt that is baked until rock hard, hardtack is a great way to make a long-lasting cracker that's staler than last Canadian Thanksgiving's biscuits, which were pre-First Flare. This food was commonly used by seafarers, migrants, and soldiers in the past as a cheap and easy way to provide sustenance. The problem is it would need to be soaked in water for a while unless you want to break your jaw. That's why dental health would be a concern with this food. We have bannocks, which are a great source of sustenance and require more or less the same ingredients, but they don't last nearly as long as hardtack. While the meat curing box is an excellent way to preserve meat for longer, and the recipes offer some fun ways to transform your meat into a tasty meal, I always felt like there has been something missing from the Long Dark. It always felt strange not to see hot dogs all over Great Bear Island. It's a relatively inexpensive food, especially if you go for the really cheap options. I can't imagine why hot dogs don't exist on the island while canned and packaged foods do. A year out from the first flare and after a possible summer season, hot dogs across the mainland would have been eaten or rotted away. My logical next suggestion is homemade sausages. With a pile of meat that might end up rotting, a mountain of salt waiting to be used, and an unfathomable amount of animal guts curing in the corner, you have the components of a sausage. They can even be smoked and cured in order to preserve them for later use. It just feels wrong to see meat curing and not also see sausage making, another ancient form of meat preparation in this quiet apocalypse. The last entry for this video is actually 3 different things, but they fit so well together I had to include them all. I have a question for Hinterland. Where the f*** is the ramen at? Ramen, as well as pasta, are some of the cheapest and most mass-produced foods on the entire planet. How did we get through 10 years of development of a survival game that takes place right after the apocalypse and not see ramen or pasta added? If Great Bear Island had trouble getting harder to acquire supplies, I see why seasonal or more exotic stuff wouldn't exist, but how could ramen or pasta not make it on the island? I'm also including rice in this entry because it makes more sense for the mainland. Ramen, pasta, and rice should absolutely be present in Blackfrost. These are mass-produced old world staples and should be plentiful around Harmont. There is a Chinese restaurant in Harmont, so big bags of rice would be an interesting sight to see. Pasta and rice are probably the most important foods across the world and across many cultures, so not seeing them either in their uncooked form or in canned food would be a real disappointment. I'll also throw in the fact that you can make your own pasta with flour, oil, salt, and eggs, but I guess Wilson the Snow Chicken would need to share those with us. That is my list of 5 foods that I would love to see in Blackfrost. I know it's technically 6 or 7, especially if you consider ramen different from pasta, but whatever. More food for us, maybe? Remember that these are just suggestions and are not confirmed to be coming in Blackfrost. We are still over a year from its estimated early access release, but I think these types of videos are fun to make. If you have any suggestions for these wishlist type videos, such as weapons you'd like to see in Blackfrost, let me know in the comments. Speaking of weapons in Blackfrost, I already made that video, so you can watch it now. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like for the algorithm so I can keep making them.